Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome back to another Saturday Anything Goes series. Today, I wanted to show you how a card that I made several weeks ago was done. I had a lot of requests for a tutorial, and let me just show you the card. When I saw the Painted Seasons DSP bundle, this is one of the designs is the mushroom. And as soon as I saw it, I immediately thought about the Sweet Storybook stamp set because it's all about mushrooms too. And I thought how perfectly the two would go together. And this card was born. And I didn't do a tutorial at the time because I had just finished one using some of the other Painted Seasons DSP, but I did post it, and like I said, I just got so many comments saying, could you please show how this was made? So I thought we would go ahead and do that for today's project. And it uses the beautiful mushroom paper, and oh, this is just gorgeous. And yes, I know it's geared towards fall, but I've seen spring mushrooms before. Don't know about you. And so I thought we could cheat a little bit and go ahead and use it as a spring card as well. There are some great colors in this. You've got Poppy Parade, Pumpkin Pie, Call Me Clover, Lemon Lime Twist, Crumb Cake, Early Espresso. So lots of different colors that we can pull in just based on the DSP. And I've already got some of it cut and done. Otherwise, this would be quite a long video. And I know anything over half an hour, 45 minutes, people tend to get pretty restless. So I did go ahead and do some of it ahead of time, but fear not, we're still going to do some stamping. I have cut a piece of pumpkin pie cardstock. And typically this would be a top fold, but because I already had this piece left over, I decided just to make it a side fold card. So this is your standard, what is it, 4 1/4 by 11 scored and folded at 5 1/2. But if you did want to do a top folding, then you could just go ahead and do that as well. Either one will work. And then of course we're going to need our mushroom designer series paper from the Painted Seasons. And you'll notice I've cut a circle out of it. This is what I call a window card. So if I bring this one back in, it might be a little hard to see. I think if I hold it like that, you might be able to see that the image is actually stamped on a piece of Whisper White that is glued straight to the card base, and then I've built up the layers. So it almost looks like there's a little window that you're peering through. So that's why I've cut the center out of this. And I just used one of the stitch-shaped circles to cut out the center of it based on how big my mushroom stamp is from the Sweet Storybook set. So we'll use that. And then, of course, I had to frame it. So I made a frame using the same size circle in the Stitch Shapes frameless and a size larger. And that makes this really nice frame that will go around and give it a finished look. To make it look more like a window, I also cut a piece of window sheet. And you don't have to be too precise with this because it is going to get hidden behind your DSP. So mine measures approximately 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And that'll give me plenty of room that I can glue it to the DSP without, with leaving the center part free of anything so that you can look straight through it. From Sweet Storybook, I went ahead and I stamped and die cut the ivy pattern. And instead of the Call Me Clover, there are different shades of green in your DSP. And as I mentioned, they use Lemon Lime Twist and they use Call Me Clover, but they use kind of graduated colors in it. So I use Pear Pizzaz, which you can kind of see if you look on the edges of some of these. I thought it went really well. The Lemon Lime Twist, which is what I used in the original card, seemed a bit too bright to me. And the Call Me Clover just really screamed at me when I used that. So I toned it down with Pear Pizzaz, stamped it with Pear Pizzaz once, and then took that stamp and just on the very edges of the leaves, used my sponge dauber and a little pumpkin pie to stamp over that area to give it the shading you see there. Another piece I've already stamped and die cut is the two little mice. And this is two-step stamping. And the reason I went ahead and cut this one out instead of showing it to you is we're going to do the two-part stamping on the mushroom itself. So you'll see exactly how that works. Okay, so those are the pieces that you need. And then, of course, you're going to need a piece of Whisper White to start it all off. And my Whisper White is exactly the same size as my DSP. And that is, it's 5 1/4 by 4. And that way I can marry the two together nicely and it gives it plenty of support. The DSP is a good weight, but it never hurts to back it so that since we're going to be using a lot of dimensionals, I didn't want it sagging in a bunch of places. And so using that full sheet or full piece of Whisper White behind the DSP really gives me that extra added strength. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is our stamping. We need to stamp our mushroom. Like I said, we've already got our mice cut out, and these will be popped up on dimensionals to add even more depth. I'll bring in the Stamparatus here, and I've already got my stamp loaded on there. And let me show you how I positioned my stamp, just to be sure. So instead of just guesstimating where the center of my Whisper White was, I laid the DSP directly on top of it. And that's another reason that I cut them both the same size. That way it's very easy for me to come along and position my stamp right where I want it. So get it just in the center there, and then you can lay down your plate and grab it, and now you can take the DSP off of it. Use my magnet to hold that down. And for the mushroom itself, I did mention it's two-part stamping. We're going to start out with the image, and I'm going to ink it up in Crumbcake. Remember, Crumbcake is one of the colors that is in our DSP. So I'll give it a nice coating of Crumbcake here. Come in and give it a good press. The nice thing about the Stamparatus, when I lift this up, if there are any pieces that need to be inked in further, it's an easy matter just to put more ink on your stamp and lay it down, and you know it's going to be in exactly the same spot. All right, so let me just clean off that stamp real quick. And I normally would use my chamois, but it is being washed right now. Okay, so we can pull this one away. And now I'll show you how I did the two-part stamping. There's another stamp in this set, which is this one right here. And this is your fill-in image. So all I'm going to do is position this, and it's pretty easy to see through. So position that where I want it. Line it up. And now I can come back and press down. And we're ready to ink it up. And for this, because it's so far in the background, I felt pretty comfortable using my Poppy Parade, which is another color that's in the DSP, but using it full strength. It's a very bright color, but because it's going to be recessed, I thought it would be fine just to go ahead and use it full strength. So I've got it inked up. We'll give it a good press here, and I'm going to give it just a moment for the ink to settle into my paper. And you can see how easy it is to get a darn near perfect filled in top of your mushroom when you do it that way. So the Stamparatus is, I just love it. I rarely have an issue with my two-step stamping when I'm using the Stamparatus. Okay, so we're done with that. And our mushroom looks great, but I kind of wanted to give it a little bit of shading. So I grabbed my light Crumbcake blends, and all I'm going to do is come in here, and where the lines are on my mushroom cap, and yes, that is the proper name for it, I'm just going to come in and lay down a little bit of color very quickly with that. Don't have to be precise. You're just going to go in and give it some highlights. And I'm doing the right hand side of my line for each one of these. So it doesn't matter if you do the right or left, or you pick the right or left, as long as you're consistent. You don't want to do some of them on the right and some of them on the left, because that doesn't look natural. And then I'm also going to scrub in a little extra color around the stem of my mushroom. Just like that. All right? And then, because you would have light coming through and hitting maybe one side of it, I'm going to pick a side, come in, and I'm going to shade that area as well. And that gives it just a little extra added dimension. So very easy to go in and shade your mushroom. And then I also thought, well, you know, we're walking down Storybook Lane here. It's kind of magical. Why not give it a little bit of sparkle? So I'll bring in my Wink of Stella, and just on the underside here, where I've done the shading with my Crumb Cake, I'm going to go ahead and give it a tad bit of sparkle. And on my stem as well, just for a little extra added interest. All right, now you could certainly come in and do the grass as well, but I will tell you that it's going to be covered up. So there really is no need to do that. However, I did want to give it a little bit of a darker background, some shading here. So I just came in with my Pool Party, and I'm going to scrub in a little bit of a shadow here. Again, that's going to give it some extra depth. Not being precise at all, just kind of scrubbing around. And the other thing I'm going to do is bring in my little mice and kind of lay them down where I think they're going to go. Let me bring in my DSP as well, because that will also guide me. And I just wanted the very bottoms of the mice to be hidden. So you can see I've kind of got a lot of white space right here in the center where the stem is. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in as well. But I do see a couple more spots here where I'd like a little more blue. Tell you, having that hole cut out of the middle really did help when I wanted to come back in here to make sure it looked good. All right, so what can we do about the bottom of the stem? Hello, Angie. Thanks for joining. Oh, I'll bet it was a cute Valentine's card. All right, so I went through a bunch of our stamp sets, and I ended up going back to our Daisy Delight because it has all these wonderful little flowers and stems that you can use. And I thought that would be perfect for giving us a little additional depth down at the stem. So I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to take this away, and we'll mount. That's probably too big a block. Let me see if I got a smaller block here. And I think I'm going to use the Pear Pizzaz. Since I use it for the leaves on the front, oops, sorry for knocking the camera there, it'll blend in really well. So here's my Pear Pizzaz. I'll just ink that up and just stamp it down. And again, it doesn't matter down here at the bottom if I overlap, because my little mice are going to be sitting right there. So just a couple of quick stamps with that is going to help break up that area. And I'll show you what I mean. So we bring our little mice in here. You can see exactly what I mean. It looks like we've just got some nice little greenery going on back there. All right, now it's time for us to put the whole thing together, the fun part. So let me take away my Stamparatus. And remember, we said that we're going to have dimension. We're going to prop this DSP up. So I'm going to glue this down flat to my card base. And I'll just use a little multi-purpose liquid glue here for that. All right, so there we go. Now we can start building up our pieces. So the next thing that I want to put on is my little mouse. So let me just check again where I want my little mouse couple to sit. Right about there is where they're going to be. Just peeking out. And for that, I'm going to use a few not glue dots, Linda, dimensionals. Yeah, that's what we need, a few dimensionals. And I actually use quite a few dimensionals for this card. Peel off my backings. This last round of dimensionals and backings are just really stuck on tight. And again, I'm going to bring in my DSP just to give myself some reference points. So I know this is going to stick down here, and I'm going to want it down a little bit further than that. So right about there. And let me just check my placement. Perfect. All right, so that's my first layer. Remember, we're going to use window sheet, and this I'm going to glue directly to the DSP back. And I think for that, I'm going to use glue dots just to make sure that I don't accidentally get some liquid glue seeping through to the middle. That would be a disaster. But I know my glue dots, or you could even use tear and tape if you wanted to, should work just fine. Glue dots are pretty strong. And one in each corner should really be all I need to hold this down. And I was thinking, after I made the first one, I could easily have made that a shaker card. because we really got all the components of it, don't we? It's got one stuck to my finger there. All right, last glue dot. And that holds it down just fine. Come here, you. Get that off my finger. Okay. So we've got that. Now we can go ahead and prop up the rest, or prop up our DSP on top of it. And you can see that that's giving it all kinds of different layers for you to peer through. So I'll bring back in my dimensionals. And I'm going to use edges for the outside pieces. I love the edges of my dimensionals for something like this especially. So I can put that there. And then we'll do another one on this side. Come up there, you. There we go. This one we'll have to put here since it's longer. And we can use this for the other side here. Goodness gracious. And then we need some for the top. I'm going to bring in another sheet of my dimensionals so that I can use the edge. All right, so we've got our edges all done, but I do want to put some around the center here to make sure that we don't get any dipping in. So just use as many as you feel you need. If you're mailing it, I would say more is better. If you're just handing it to someone, you probably don't need to go too crazy with your dimensionals. Cut this one in half. Just want to make sure I get some down here at the bottom. Okay. Now before I glue this down though, remember we need to add some ribbon. I cut a piece that's, oh, I don't know, about 6.5 inches. And as you can see, I probably could have just cut 2 smaller pieces because you're not going to want any in the center. So I'm just going to cut this down. And I also should have done this before I put down my window sheet, but it'll be fine. I can sneak it right in there. So we'll use some glue dots for that. Hello, Terry. Hi, Amy. Thanks, ladies, for joining today. Amy, I'm so looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. All right, so I've got my glue dot there. I'm just going to slide this in. I know where my center is. Press that down, and then I can bring it around to this side and use another glue dot right there to hold it. Cut off my excess here. And then we'll just repeat on the other side. So it's going to slide in there. And you certainly can use your grid paper to make sure that they're lined up in the center. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this, so I'm just going to eyeball it. She says. All right. One more glue dot ought to do it. Right there. Press that down good, and scissors right in front of you, Linda. Cut off my excess. Okay. Now we can do the fun part of peeling off the backings on all of this. And the most important step here is going to be making sure when I put it on that I don't put it on upside down. Would be terrible. My mushrooms were running the wrong way, yes? Okay, so here we go. My mushrooms look good. Pardon my head if it gets in the way. And I just slide it right down like that. Okay, so there, I don't know if you can see it or not. If I hold it like that, you can, but look at the depth that we have. Our mushroom is in the far back, and then we've got our cute little mice coming forward, and then our DSP even pops it up further. But wait, we're not done. Remember our frame? We definitely want to put our frame down, and I'm going to pop that up as well. Now I'm going to pop that up with, I should have brought them out, so hopefully I can find them here real quick. But remember the foam strips that we have for making shaker cards? I think I got them right here somewhere. That would definitely be the easiest to use. But of course I can't find mine. So no worries. Instead of popping it up, I'm just going to glue it straight down. But you certainly could, if you've got those thin foam strips, put them along the back before you put this on, and it would cause it to pop up even further. Oh, you know what? I know what we can do. Our mini dimensionals. Those will work. And I have some right here. They're the perfect size. Yep, they will fit perfectly. So I'm just going to intersperse these at key points. And don't be stingy with them, because you want to make sure that you've got a good contact of the frame with the DSP. There we go. So I'll probably use 6 or 8 just to make sure. Couple more. Trying to make sure my flat edge is against the flat edge there. One more and we should be good. Okay, there we go. That makes me feel better though. I did want it to stand away from the rest of the card. We'll see how many of these dimensionals end up on the dog. I swear every time I turn around, she's got some in her tail. She had one on her nose the other day and couldn't get it off. It was the funniest thing. All right. So we've got that, and we're just going to place this to where it gives us a nice frame all the way around. But it does stand away from the card just a bit. All right. We'll put our leaves on. I just thought it was a nice way of framing even further our little mice in the window. And for those, I'm just going to use multi-purpose glue. Being careful because some of this goes actually off the card. So you don't want to put any sticky where it goes off the card. So I'm just putting it on those inside leaves and stems. So there's one. And here's the other one. Isn't that cute? Oh my gosh, that is so cute. All right, we have one thing left, and that is our sentiment. Now, this is a pretty busy card, so if you wanted to put the sentiment, just leave it for the inside, you certainly could do that. But I thought I could get away with putting the sentiment on the outside here. If I can find it. Where's my sentiment? Goodness gracious, there is stuff everywhere. Last time it was hiding behind that. I really did stamp one, gang. But if I have to stamp another one, you know, we can do that too. Oh, there it is, hiding down there. On this one, I decided to use For My Little Sweetheart. And because there's so many layers going on, I'm not going to mat this. To give it a little more definition, I thought what I would do is just ink the edges with my sponge dauber. And we could really pick any of the colors that you see in the DSP. I used pumpkin pie on my last one. On this one, I think I'm going to do the same. So let me break out my pumpkin pie here. Sorry, I know the camera's going to shake. It's like no matter what I do, where I put that mount, if I even tap on the floor, the whole desk shakes. So I'm going to have to figure something out for that. All right, so we're just going to ink the very edges lightly. And that is just so that it stands away from that busy DSP a little bit better. All right, again, you could use any color that you wanted that would go with your DSP. And here I'm only going to put, I need to prop it up on the bottom because we've got layers here, but I'll glue it down from the top. And for the bottom part, I'm going to go back and use my mini Stampin' Dimensionals because most of it is hanging off of the bottom there. Three should be ample. And then I can just run a line of glue across the top since it will rest against that frame. Come on. There we go. Run a thin bead of glue across the top. And hopefully I don't drop this while I'm doing it. And that just makes sure that you get good contact and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't pop off. All right, so there we go. There is our little Storybook Lane window card. and I really do like the way it came out. And I think that that DSP is just perfect with the Storybook Lane stamps and dies. All right, so there you have it. My 2 cards made with that. And if you have any questions, please leave me a comment below and I will be sure to answer your questions. I'll post this hopefully on my blog tomorrow. I've been kind of lackadaisical about my blog with everything else that's been going on at home here, but I'm going to do better and get it posted with all of the cuts, card cut, the DSP cuts and the cardstock cuts. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial and that you'll give it a try. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. See you all next week. Bye now.